All right, thanks, Dan. I guess it's my turn. Um, Tying back into what I said about Benghazi, I think the biggest reason why I won't vote for Clinton is because I believe that the Democratic Party is corrupted. It's a machine, and I mean so is the Republican Party. But when I got out of the Marines in 2004, I was so disillusioned with Iraq and the policies that I saw firsthand that I became an avid Democrat, and I invested a lot in that. And then, having done that, working more towards the inside of the party, I found that it's a machine, and it will spit you out, chew you up and spit you out. And as a veteran, that was really highly insulting. I believe that a lot more good can come from the policies of the Democratic Party, but because it's so corrupted, I feel like, if I vote for Trump and he's elected, he's such an absolutely insane candidate that it would force the Democratic Party to look at itself and go, whoa, maybe we fucked up big time. Maybe we shouldn't have shafted the Sanders supporters and thought that, as a machine, we knew what was best for the country. So that's something I'm still debating too. I just have to weigh whether or not Trump would be like such a disaster for this country that there'd be no turning back, almost like a Nero or Caligula figure. I don't know.
And that's difficult too. And that's something that I've been thinking about is like, okay, how do you calculate the risk of like you can define Clinton, you can predict things she will and won't be involved in at home, overseas. And on the other hand, it's Trump's the wild card, and if some people vote for him because they want to have him represent the giant middle finger to the political atmosphere, then they might accomplish it. But at the other hand, it's there's so many blank spaces with Trump that it's a gamble that you don't know how far in what direction anything could head, since there hasn't been any defined context for a lot of his statement for how things will actually take place. And I think he does leverage the not the dream or the idea in a lot of people's minds that are like, I mean, say that like the immigration aspect, they know there has to be incredible change to take place, like in that environment for the states to get what they need to get done for immigration. For a plan being set forth and any conversation going behind it, it's pretty much non-existent. And likewise, for if it's his foreign policy of how is he actually going to deal with countries A, B, and C. He said a few things about trade deals and whatnot, but I think there's an empty space that people can fill in. It's kind of like dating, like maybe like I always think of it like okay, it's a bad ex-girlfriend. You're dealing with, like, when you first meet her, you don't know enough about her, so you're gonna fill in that blank space with like your own ideas, right? So you're thinking of all these great things, like, oh, like you can imagine, like, oh, she's probably like this, and you're optimistic about it. And it could go one way or another, and you just don't know. And it likely could be a horrible ex-girlfriend, and that's kind of how I've perceived Trump. And you mix that in the pot with basically all the other statements that have been made and everything else. But that's one thing that I think he has going for him, is that since he isn't defined and he doesn't have a long history in a lot of these aspects, people kind of fill in the gap with the fact that there's a wild card, and there's a small chance that it could go their way. But
That's one side of the political debate that we haven't really seen, which I really appreciate, is that analytical side, and the really colorblind aspect to it. You've worked from the inside and seen the policies that Clinton and actions that she's enacted as Secretary of State and as a senator and so forth. And so you have this idea of what will come, and it's not necessarily that good. And then you've got Pandora's box with Trump. And then you have to weigh the two sides to that. And I think it's, as opposed to screaming at one another, it's really interesting to have to weigh those two options and say, if I roll the dice with one, is it likely that the benefits will be greater than the other?
Right, right. And say, are you a gambling man, or do you want to go with the status quo of kind of knowing what you're going to be set up for?